Sue, do we still have two speakers on this item?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just two. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I'm pleased to call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors on Wednesday, November 25th, 2020. We only have one item on our agenda that we'll be dealing with shortly, but let me get started first by asking the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Chairman Cox. Before I call the roll, I would like to note for the record that all 5 supervisors are participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be handled by a roll call vote. Additionally, before we begin, any members of the public that wish to provide oral testimony during today's meeting, please review the instructions posted on the Clerk of the Board's webpage. Any members of the public that have requested to speak today, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. With that, I'll now call the roll. Supervisor Jacob. I know Supervisor Jacob is having some technical issues, so we'll work with her through that. Supervisor Gaspar?
Present. Supervisor
Fletcher?
Fletcher here.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Here.
Chairman Cox?
Here. I want to start off by thanking my colleagues and our county staff for arranging this special meeting on such short notice. I realize that we're right before a holiday, no less, and to discuss a very important item such as this, I thought it was important, along with Supervisor Fletcher, to ask our colleagues to meet in special session. Obviously, providing the right critical relief for impacted businesses is at the priority, I think, of all of our list of things we want to try to get done as a result of our placement in the purple tier of the state's reopening blueprint. In recent weeks, we have seen a massive surge in the number of cases and hospitalizations and unfortunately deaths. And as a result, businesses have been forced to stop all indoor operations in an effort to help slow the spread of this disease. But not all businesses can move outdoors. And the reality is that many businesses are already on the brink of closure, and this new placement in the purple tier may just push them over the edge. We want to try to prevent that if we at all possibly can. Our board has previously allocated funds for economic relief to those affected by our current public health crisis, and this proposal builds on that past support. In the first round of the Business Stimulus Grant Program, we received more than $780 million in requests by more than 5,000 applicants. And though we tried to offer each business some level of assistance, the fact is the need far outweighed the supply on hand. Through our testing efforts, we were able to avoid the purple tier for the last 2 months and stay in the red tier, allowing gyms, restaurants, and other businesses to operate indoor at some level of capacity. But now, unfortunately, that option has been taken away. So it is with that thought in mind that Supervisor Nathan Fletcher and I, as the COVID-19 subcommittee, ask our colleagues to join us today and approve a $20 million infusion into the Small Business Stimulus Grant Program to help these businesses afloat a little bit longer as we weather through this pandemic. Those industries that would be affected include restaurants, gyms and fitness centers, including yoga studios, movie theaters, museums, zoos, and aquariums. And if there is no objection from my colleagues, I'd also like to move to amend this proposal to add the events industry, which has been impacted since the beginning of this pandemic and never allowed to host their long planned events like conferences, marathons, conventions, weddings, and other ceremonies, just to list a few. With light at the end of the tunnel because of the development of vaccines in the coming months, this relief program can be the lifeline that prevents more businesses from closing. As such, I would like to make a motion to approve the amended proposal to include the events industry and the other recommendations listed in the board letter so that we can get this grant program up and running. And if there's no major changes to what is laid out before us, I'm told by our staff that we can actually have this on our website by the close of business today, by 5 p.m. That would be my motion, and I'd call on Supervisor Nathan Fletcher for his comments as a co-docketer of this item.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Cox. I'd be happy to second that motion. We've seen an alarming rise in a number of cases, a five-fold increase from days where we had 200 to 300 to nowadays we have over 1,500. Significant jump in our percentage of positive, an alarming rise in hospitalizations. And the great fear around hospitalizations is not where we are today. It's where we could be in 21 to 24 days as that delay and lag catches up, along with challenges surrounding staffing. And so because of all of those, we are forced to do unprecedented things and to take actions that none of us want to take. None of us take any joy in doing, but knowing that if we don't limit the highest risk settings, the loss of life will be far greater, the threat to our healthcare system will be far greater, but we also know the economic damages would be far greater. Many regions that have tried different approaches have seen firsthand that if you don't take specific action to limit the highest risk settings, then you face a calamitous situation that makes a bad economy exponentially worse. But none of that is any comfort to a business owner who, through no fault of their own, is having their indoor operations closed. They didn't do anything wrong. A year ago, we never would have imagined that indoor settings where people gather together would be dangerous because of a global pandemic. But the situation in front of us forces us to take unprecedented action. And it is difficult, though, and it's hard, and it has a very real impact. And while we await the federal government passing another relief effort, it's been stalled. I've talked to multiple members of Congress this week. They believe something will be imminent, if not before the end of the year, then hopefully at the very beginning of January. That can provide this substantive help and assistance. And none of these businesses want assistance. They just want to work. But until we get through this pandemic and until we have a vaccine and the spread under control, we're forced to take the steps we're taking. And so the $20 million we're asking to be approved today is hopefully just a bridge, a little bit of help, can hopefully get folks through the next few months while we await a larger federal effort. And while we hopefully can wrestle control of this spread into a more manageable situation where perhaps we can get back to a lower tier. I know we're all ready to be out of this. We have a light at the end of the tunnel with vaccines, but we have great concern between now and the end of the year with our case count, with the challenges hospitals are having, particularly around staffing and heading into the holiday season. And so hopefully this can provide a little bit of help and assistance to those in need. So with that, Chairman Cox would be happy to second the motion.
Thank you, Supervisor. And let me ask if, before we get into the public communication speakers on this item and get into board discussion, let me ask if any of my colleagues on the board have any questions I'd like to raise at this time before we get into the public speakers.
Chairman Cox, I just have a clarifying question. I assume that the events industry would also include our catering and party rental companies that have been hit since the onset?
Yes, it would. And
Thank
I
you.
realize that, you know, not the years, but over the last few months, I mean, they've had the, rent payments to make and payroll to get to, and certainly outstanding warrants and invoices that they have. So this might provide an opportunity to provide them some relief to hold on a little longer.
Thank you, Chairman.
And Chairman Cox, this is Tom. What we will amend is going to be in attachment A, the guidelines for the grant fund Under eligible businesses, we'll add a new section 6, which will include businesses in the events industry. And then in the application process 4, as in the first question, we will add events industry business to section A there as well.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that input.
I had a question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead,
Just
Vice Chairman Desmond.
That I'm assuming they would be, but I want to make sure street fairs or people who put on street fairs is included in the events, under the events umbrella as well.
It would be my intent, and I think Supervisor Fletcher's intent, that that would be included under the events industry.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions before we get into the public communications? All right, Tom, Andrew, if you'd go ahead and call up our speakers.
Thank you,
We'll
Mr.
limit
Chairman.
3.
Thank you. And just to note for the record, we received 52 e-comments on this item. We have 2 individuals that have requested to address the board on this item. We'll be calling the speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. They'll hear notification that their call has been unmuted, and then they will need to press *6 to unmute their lines. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. And you'll hear this sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. I'll remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Aaron, if you could please identify the first caller.
Yes, our first caller is 6784. 6784.
Good afternoon. My name is Marty Martinez. Thank you for today's meeting. These stimulus funds are of some help, but I believe they are not enough, especially when one considers the end-all fix is herd immunity through the use of vaccines. At the time of the last county board meeting, there was national news about COVID-19 vaccines. It captured a lot of attention because many people believe these vaccines will be the cure for the San Diego County economy. I started researching these vaccines, and this is what I believe to be factually true. First, a vaccine works by exposing a small amount of virus to train the body to deal with the virus and keep you from spreading the virus. If effective, one does not get the virus, and if they do, then there is no response and the person does not transmit the virus. Second, the protocols for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine trials are not using the virus and are not testing for prevention of transmission. Tal Zak, the person responsible for the development of Moderna's vaccine, admits, quote, "Our trial will not demonstrate prevention of transmission because in order to do that, you will have to swab people twice a week for a very long period, and that becomes operationally untenable," unquote. These quote-unquote vaccines do not satisfy the historical definition of a vaccine and were never designed to limit or stop transmission. As such, we are going to be in the same situation we are in now, shut down because of concerns related to transmission of the virus. In April this year, there were known safe and effective medications for COVID-19. Just look at the death rates in countries where these medicines were used. Please consider this as the board moves forward. If you would like more information about these medicines, then please contact an organization called America's Frontline Doctors. Thank you, and may God bless America.
Thank you. Our next caller is 0116. 0116.
Good afternoon, Chair Cox and board members. My name is Peter Comiskey, representing the members of the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership and Arts and Culture San Diego, a coalition of over 100 organizations throughout the county. I would like to first thank Chair Cox and Supervisor Fletcher for introducing this item today and concur regarding the importance of this support, particularly with the collapse into the purple tier. I strongly encourage all members of the board to support this effort. I am pleased to note the program covers museums, and by that reference, I am trusting that all organizations, whether non-profit or for-profit organizations, will be eligible. Non-profit organizations are employers and invest significantly in our communities. These organizations are suffering heavily during this time with the double impact of reduced earned income and the loss of significant amounts of philanthropic support. Please ensure that this and any future programs support remain accessible to non-profit organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony. Chairman Cox.
Thank you. We want to thank Mr. Martinez and Mr. Koniski for their comments today. We do have a motion by myself, seconded by Supervisor Fletcher. And at this point, I'll ask my colleagues if they have additional points under discussion they'd like to make.
Mr. Chair, yes, I would.
Yes, Vice Chairman Desmond.
Thank you very much. You know, I think it's good to allocate these emergency funds to businesses that are all struggling under the governor's orders. But this is a much needed Band-Aid, but it's really not a solution. You know, the businesses affected, they aren't looking for handouts. They aren't really looking for anything free. They just want their livelihoods back and to get back to work. You know, this yo-yo effect of businesses seeing how unfair the economic winners and losers of the COVID economy were chosen. The small businesses, a lot of them have lost faith, they're defeated, and they're broke. And so all they were asking for was the same opportunity like other businesses to be able to operate safely. You know, that shouldn't be a choice between businesses operating under the COVID precautions and managing the virus. It's not a competition. We can and we should do both. I think if we truly cared about helping businesses, we would fight to do whatever we could to allow businesses the right to safely open. I hope the governor, who doesn't even follow his own rules, is happy today, because today our businesses are shut down. And yet our cases are rising with no link at all to any of the businesses that went from red to purple. Today, our positivity rate is 3 times what it was when we were in the red. We're at 21 out of 100,000. That is 21 1/100ths of 1%, not even a quarter of 1% of those being tested at a rate of 20,000 tests a day are testing positive. And less than 10% of our overall hospital bed capacity are COVID patients. And we still have about 1,600 empty beds in San Diego County. So is this a reason not to follow the health protocols? Absolutely not. But is it a reason to shut down businesses who are willing to safely operate? I don't think so. So, I hope the governor is happy with the mental anguish, the anxiety, the isolation, the increased drug use, the loss of our children's education, the loss of businesses and livelihoods. And I do want to thank, though, the county staff, the county hospital workers, all the first responders for the hard work and their effort in controlling the virus and protecting our most vulnerable. They've done a top-notch job. They've also helped people get tested, helping people find resources, helping those that get the virus get better. And for those businesses who can come into compliance. Though today, we've not been of one voice. And if you didn't fall lockstep in line with the governor, you were ridiculed. If you sought answers from outside multiple sources, you were called a conspiracy theorist. If you had different ideas of how to handle COVID while balancing livelihoods, you were called reckless. I hope the governor's proud of this mess by losing the faith of the populace, setting a bad example, and moving the goalposts by giving us a color-coded plan to nowhere. I'm supportive of this item and trying to help businesses, so I will support it, but I'm in favor of it. But I think it's unfortunately, it's a much-needed Band-Aid, but it's not a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Desmond. Additional comments?
Chairman Cox, one thing I would point out in response to the second speaker, that nonprofits are included in the guidelines as they've been drafted.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other comments from my colleagues? If not, let me, before I call for the vote, just say that I realize that we find ourselves in a situation that none of us created, that none of us like. Obviously, we want nothing more than the economy to get back to business, and we want people to fully recover from the impacts of COVID-19. But in the interim, this is, I think, one small step we can take to try to help those businesses that have been struggling, and hopefully help them hang on for a little bit longer until we get the vaccine readily available for everybody. If there are no further comments, I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you. Chairman Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Jacob?
Aye.
Supervisor Gaspar?
Aye.
Supervisor Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
Vice Chairman Desmond?
Aye.
Chairman Cox, that motion passes unanimously with all board members being present and voting aye.
Very good. And again, I thank my colleagues and the staff for coming together on Wednesday eve of Thanksgiving. As we all celebrate Thanksgiving tomorrow, I hope all of us will give some special thoughts and prayers to our first responders, to the people that are in the hospitals, the nurses, the doctors that have just been overwhelmed by this crisis. And obviously our law enforcement and fire personnel, they are doing an outstanding job in what they are doing. And it is a time of the year where we can sit back and be with intimate family members and hopefully have a nice meal. But it's also a time of the year when we should be thankful for what we have and for the cooperation that we've had from the citizens in the businesses in San Diego County. So with that, we will stand adjourned to our next regular scheduled board meeting, which will be on Tuesday, December 8th at 9 a.m. Before we sign off, let me ask our clerk of the board if there's any additional comments that he needs to make.
There are not. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If not, again, I hope everybody has a enjoyable Thanksgiving, and we'll see everybody back at the next board meeting. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.